Welcome back to TRW Pizza. I recently did an 8 pizza batch on my Ooni Koda 16, and they all turned out to be consistently good, well cooked, not too charred, just the right level of colour and flavour and cooking. I want to explain how I managed to maintain that consistently across all those pizzas. I'm going to start by explaining technically how I keep my pizzas in certain zones of the Ooni Koda 16, depending on the temperature, and I am also going to take you through each of those pizza real-time cooks to see how I did it practically. Guys, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. It really helps. Hey guys, I want to do a quick video about balancing the flame and the temperature of the Ooni Koda 16 stone. So I was going to film into the oven as I kind of explained this, but as you can see it's quite dark in there, so it's not ideal. The light isn't shining at the right level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stone out and film that. But as you know, as you may know, may not know actually, the flame of the Ooni Koda sits at the back and on the left-hand side. So let me get the stone out now and explain why that's relevant. It's a very easy job to get it out. Over it comes, onto here. Shift this across, and now you can see that is the stone as it sits in the oven, exactly in that position. Now what I want to talk about is the fact that essentially there's some key points to consider when you're placing your pizza. Obviously I've got the infrared thermometer, which I point generally in the center of the stone, and I'm always looking to have that about 430 degrees, give or take 10 degrees. That's 430 degrees Celsius. And if this stone is too hot and it's closer to 500, generally it will burn the bottom of the pizza, I find. So when I heat up the stone, it takes about 20 minutes. I do that by putting the gas on full. Then when it reaches that around 500 degrees mark, I turn the gas down to low and wait for it to drop to about 430, 420, 440, something like that. At that point, it's ready to cook the first pizza. Now, I'm going to use my daughter's excellent pizza here. I mean, I quite like it. It's quite deep crust for me. Let's see how she's cooked it underneath. Yeah, not well done actually, but now I'm going to show you the placement using this. So, imagine this was 430 degrees here, Celsius. I will try and launch the pizza as well as possible into the center here. Now, if it's too far back and to the left, that's where the flames are, so you're more likely to get singeing around here. If the stone turns out to be not quite as hot as you wanted, say it's more around the 400 mark, even 390, then I would maybe position it a bit further back to the left, because this is where you'll get more heat. Obviously being careful that the flame isn't licking over that pizza too much, so the flame would be on low. I very rarely have the flame on high for cooking the actual pizza. Sometimes it's medium, but generally I have that on low as well. Now, if you notice, for whatever reason, that your pizza is getting a bit too hot and there's a risk for burning, and it's sitting back here, then I simply will bring it into the center. Or if it's getting very, very kind of hot and you think it's going to get burnt very quickly, then I just bring it to about here, and you'll notice there's probably about a 20-30% temperature difference between here and here. So this is where you can still get the pizza cooking. Hopefully it's risen nicely in the center, so you've got the crust has risen nicely, but you know there's still some cooking to do on the toppings. So at that point you will be moving it to about here. So it's all about that balance between cooking it at the start at about 430 in the center. If you need to, heat it up over here, but not too close to the flame. And if it is too hot, bring it over here. So think of like kind of A, B, and C. A, B, and C as 3 zones. I tend to always keep mine in A, if at all possible, if the temperature's right. But like everything, the temperature isn't always right. So that's why you have to play with it a bit. And just watch those flames, because even on low, it can singe the pizza. So I hope that helps. Just a little bit of insight as to how I generally manage to keep my pizzas from burning. Obviously, it still happens from time to time. I'm also putting some old footage from when I first got the oven, just while I talk through another important element that I wanted to make sure you're aware of, because I wasn't really aware of it for a long time. When you get the oven up to, or the pizza stone up to the temperature you want it to go, say 430 degrees, you actually lose a lot of that temperature in the first pizza cook. So don't assume that when you get it up to the desired temperature and then you turn the flame down to low, that it's going to maintain that temperature without a reheat. That will not happen. What I tend to find is that if I launch at 430 and then cook a pizza, I come back to it, it will be down to 400, maybe late 300s. So the important message there is you can't then cook another pizza without reheating the stone properly. So what I will do is, as soon as I take this pizza out, I would then put the flame back on medium or high for a short amount of time. I'm just talking about 2-3 minutes just to reheat that stone, get the energy back into it. It's very important because sometimes, as I'm showing here, you don't get the same rise that you expect from a previously cooked pizza because that temperature has gone down. I hope that's clear. I think it's really important, and I wish I knew that earlier on in my pizza making journey. So now onto the part of the video where I show you the practical implementation of this. I show the real-time cooking of going through each of those pizzas. Here are some of the images of the pizzas I made in the session I'm about to show you. I think you'll agree, generally good level of cooking. Obviously not perfect, I'm still learning, I've still got a lot to learn, but general, consistently round, well-cooked pizzas. So let's commence on number one. You'll notice the pizza stone's very clean there. Obviously, before I do any new batch, I have that stone out. I give it a good clean, a good wipe down, make sure there's no leftover detritus from the previous session. And yes, it's 430 degrees here in the center of the oven, getting a rise very quickly. I was happy with that launch. It landed almost exactly where I wanted it to be. And you can see a little bit more of a rise at the back because that's, as I said, closer to the zone B, closer to the corner where the flames are. So after about 25-30 seconds, I tentatively just start to manipulate the position of it just so I'm getting an even exposure to the hotter elements of the oven and a little bit of closeness to the flame as well. You can see it's not getting particularly close to the flame here, but it's still developing some leopard spotting or some carbonizing of certain parts. The underside there, you saw a flash of it looking pretty healthy, not overcooked. You see, if that pizza stone there had been measuring closer to 480, 500 degrees, you would have seen a lot of blackened char on the underside of the pizza when it flashed up, but that's not the case here. So we're approaching about 1:20 on this cook. I haven't gone too close to the back, but there you saw a little bit of ignition, let's call it, on one of the dark bits of the pizza. And again, so what you can see is when that happens, I give it a tap and it goes out. It's something that is part of the learning process. I need to constantly monitor where the darker bits of the pizza are and make sure they're pulled away from the flame as much as possible. So number one, as always, not perfect, but okay. Now before I show more pizzas being cooked, I can't cover this topic without talking about the actual dough recipe itself as well. It's very important. Basically, if you have dough that is too soft, overinflated, it's going to be much harder to launch, much harder to place and manipulate on the stone. And that's where I think one of the big breakthroughs I've had personally in recent times is that I've got my dough to a reasonably well, consistently solid position where I know I'm going to have a pizza base which is of a good consistency. It's not going to be too elastic. It's not going to be too soft and gooey. And the main difference, and I've talked about this in previous videos you can check out about my dough recipe, the main difference is that I'm now using a lot less yeast than I used to. To be honest, I'm using in the region of around if I was making 1,000 grams worth of flour to make about 7 or 8 pizza balls, I would actually be using about half a teaspoon of active dry yeast. Previously I was using a lot more than that. So the message here is that by getting your dough recipe right, you're much likely to get a good launch from the pizza peel into the oven and positioning, and much less likely to have that dough sticking on the pizza stone as well. So please don't think this is all about getting the right temperature on your uni and then you're not going to have any issues. You see how that dough transferred there to the peel? It's relatively easy to drag across. It didn't stretch in like an elastic band and get all bunched up. It moved across nicely. This is the dough that I was using in the video that you're seeing these pizzas being made from. It's just a very nice recipe. I'm very happy with it. Check out my other videos of how I'm making my dough these days, and I think you will definitely find better results if you have that kind of approach to the making of the dough itself. So here I am finalizing that pizza, ready for its toppings. I'm making a classic margherita here. Got some fresh Parmigiano. Don't overdo it on the Parmesan, guys. There's always a propensity to do so, but no need. Then some pre-grated shop-bought mozzarella. I must admit, I'd used up all the pre-cut dried mozzarella at that point. And then let's cook it. We've got some fresh buffalo mozzarella there as well. It's looking like a rather handsome pizza, if you ask me. Good launch. So as you heard, that good consistency of pizza dough equaled a good easy launch. I always give it a little jiggle at the start to make sure it's not sticking at all in that peel, and it just went out perfectly. I used to put a lot more semolina flour on the peel to help that launch smoothly. However, there is definitely a likelihood of that semolina, when you're making a few pizzas on the uni, that semolina flour kind of coagulating or gathering together on the pizza stone, and then it can actually burn a bit, which causes a couple of problems. One is that it can be left over on the underside of the pizza. The other is that it just makes the pizza stone itself with this like covering of carbonated flour, which isn't exactly what you want to maintain the temperature of the stone and things like that. So avoid that if at all possible. I just do a light dusting of Tipo 00 flour these days on the peel, and with this well-designed, well-made dough, I find the launch is absolutely fine. But always do that jiggle before it goes out. Here you can see the colour of the pizza from pizza number 2 is looking very good. The underside there's a flash, and it looked a very agreeable colour. Starting to see the toppings bubble. This pizza's almost done. This is the balancing act where you want to make sure it's thoroughly cooked, but at the same time, not leave it in too long that it starts to get singed like I did in pizza number 1. Out it comes. Very happy with that improvement on pizza number 1. And let's get a photograph. So, to me, that's exactly what I'm looking for in a margherita. Great development of the crust. Can't complain. Now notice, here comes pizza number 3. The flame inside that uni is on high. You can see they're looking up high. I'm doing exactly what I mentioned near the start of this video. I'm reheating the stone, having just cooked pizza on there. So I checked the temperature. It was clearly a little bit too high. I then turned it down, left a bit of time, and then the pizza goes in. You didn't see the time I waited because I cut. But yes, the pizza, the stone was close to 480. I then just left it for 3-4 minutes to come down on medium heat, which it is now, and the pizza went in. So that's, again, balancing that temperature, make sure it's not going in too hot. If it was too hot right now, when I lift up the pizza and show you the underside, you'd see that it was very dark. That isn't the case. You can see I'm not letting it get too close to the rear or the back right now. There is a lot of heat there though. You can see it bubbling up already. So I've got a slightly higher flame for this cook, and the temperature is a little bit higher than the previous pizzas. Therefore, you can see I'm keeping it a little bit closer to zone C actually, a little bit further forward and to the right. I'm aware that if I have it too close to the back or left, it's going to burn. You can actually see that is what happens just there. I need to finish this pizza as soon as possible to avoid it more singeing, but I think overall the balance was good. I was happy with that one. Okay, so you can tell the light is fading. I was doing these pizzas in the early evening. I'm checking the temperature again. It's roughly the temperature I wanted it at. Reheated that stone. Turned down the flame. In goes pizza number 4. Another solid launch, happy with that. Sitting in pretty much zone A in the center there. You would have noticed on the infrared thermometer the temperature was slightly lower than I normally aim for. It's about 418 in the center. About 10 degrees Celsius lower than I've been advising. These things are never perfect. And to be honest, that isn't a big deal, it doesn't matter. But you can see the effect it's having. The pizza isn't rising as fast as the previous one. So that's where I'm just monitoring it carefully. Moving it a little bit further back as needed. Starting to get a little bit more reaction in the crust. Toppings are starting to bubble. Obviously when you have a higher crust and it's got up like this, it's closer to the flame. It's close to the hotter part of the oven because the heat obviously rises. So you have to be very careful when you start getting a pizza that rises this much. It's the top, let's say, mountains and peaks of the pizzas that are more likely to get burnt. Look at that, absolutely piping hot. I was a little bit paranoid, I think, that was going to burn quite quickly, so I got it out there and finished that pizza. Okay, so it's getting very dark now. I actually got the torch out just to get a little bit more light on the subject. I've reheated that stone again, got it to the temperature I want it to be, about 430 degrees C. Give it a little bit of a shake, make sure it's moving nice on the peel, which means that it will launch properly. And it goes very, very quick, smooth launch, but as you can see, it went closer to zone B, went right to the back. That was unplanned. Obviously right now I'm watching it very closely at the back, because I'm like, okay, that flame is very likely to start singeing the pizza, so I'm already tentatively getting that turning peel in there to rescue it and bring it forward a bit. I don't normally touch the pizza with the peel that early, but there you can see that's exactly what I did. I left it for a few seconds just to firm up the dough, which means that when I put the peel under it won't damage the dough, but then quickly rescued it. You can see worked out quite nicely, didn't get burned, a little bit of leopard spotting, but now it's closer to zone A or zone C, i.e. the center, or to the front on the right. It's rising nicely. Underside looks fine. I love seeing that steam come off it as the liquid and the air particles go through that high heat. Very satisfying. It's looking like another fine pizza. Maintained its shape nicely. I do find it interesting, and it's part of what I love about pizza making is the difference of these pizzas, one to the other, despite the fact I'm using the same dough recipe, the same oven, the same timing. They all come out slightly different. It's part of the magic, and And yeah, it's just an interesting fact that tiny variables can make pizzas very different. And then the penultimate pizza, slightly cooler that time. It's gone into zone A. Flame is slightly higher though. So here I've done a balance where the stone is cooler, but the flame is slightly higher. And as long as I don't keep it too close to the flame, that isn't going to be a problem. But I do have to watch it very closely. It's not quite full medium, the flame. Previously I was cooking on low or just above low, so it's maybe 20% higher flame here. That's causing more direct heat from the flame, which is compensating for a slightly lower temperature stone. You'll see it's working okay, it's working fine in fact, but you'll see the pizza isn't rising as much in the areas that aren't closer to the flame. If that stone was hotter, the pizza would be rising kind of more uniformly. And that is, again, just part of the trial and error. You have to just keep on practicing and getting your head around how that works and how to balance it. Because you're never going to have the temperature of the stone perfectly consistent. You're never going to be able to, well, I personally won't be able to perfectly launch the pizza into exactly where I want it to be 100% of the time. I'm never going to stop 100% of burning and singeing. In fact, there you go. I just had some there. Possibly because I had a cheeky sip of wine and wasn't paying attention. That's another really, really important thing here. You have to pay attention all the time when you're cooking pizzas. Don't take your eye off the ball, otherwise you'll have issues very, very quickly. 3 to 5 seconds not paying attention can result in a problematic pizza. So the last pizza of the night you saw there, I was getting about 410 degrees when I'd heated the oven up, so I'd had it on the flame on full to get the stone to where I wanted it to be. I opted for a 410 degree stone with a slightly higher flame to cook this one. And in it went, again, zone A, central. This one had some pre-baked chilies on the top. Sorry, not chilies, red pepper. Red and yellow pepper. Again, you'll notice it will rise a bit more closer to the flame. I'm watching it closely because the flame's a bit higher. It's looking very nice shape. Just being careful. Spin it round about 180 degrees there. That was very quick. It was less than 30 seconds. It cooked that side of the pizza almost perfectly. The underside is looking good. It's not burned. Another sign of a good pizza making session is that the stone itself doesn't get too dirty or built up with detritus, and you can see that stone's looking pretty clean after 8 pizzas. So I'm happy with that. Didn't get any sticking or pizza base disasters, holes in the pizza making the sauces fall through and get all stuck and coagulated. Last pizza of the night was looking good. You just got to keep concentrating, keep the energy up, and deliver quality. So guys, I hope you found this useful. I feel that, as always with my videos, the key theme is just encouragement to keep trying, keep practicing over and over again, and you will get better. That's all I'm doing. I'm still only at the start of my journey, but I'm really enjoying it. I hope you enjoy it too. Please like and subscribe if you find it useful, and it's just much appreciated to get that kind of support. Thank you.